The Tua Tagovailoa ending their long contract negotiations. Tua agreeing to a 4-year contract extension. It's emergency podcast time here on Locked On Dolphins. Let's get after it.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Miami, welcome to another episode of Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day here on the Locked On Network. I'm your host, Kyle Krabs, a lifelong Miami Dolphins fan, host of Locked On Dolphins, co-host of Locked On NFL Scouting. You can find our shows on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Tip of the cap to our everydayers, because it is your team every day here on the Locked On Network, sometimes twice a day. We still have a training camp practice recap that we got to drop here. I am in South Florida for training camp. But the news right now, we're live, and I usually don't go like live stream. I'm live streaming right now because the news has dropped that Tua Tagovailoa has agreed to a contract extension with the Miami Dolphins. Got all our thoughts on the surface numbers, where it checks in, where we thought it was going to check in. So we'll get all that details, and we will talk about it here on this emergency podcast. Today's emergency podcast episode of Locked On Dolphins is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. Okay. Deal's done, which it was a little peculiar this morning. I think we'll start there. Tua has agreed to a 4-year contract extension worth $212.4 million with $167 million in guarantees. That is the largest 4-year extension in contract, 4-year contract extension in NFL history. That is the Goat Farm at Goat Farm Media on Twitter had Tua announce his own contract extension, which I think is kind of cool. It's not something that happens too often, and it beat the big network insiders by a few minutes where Tua kind of drops his own announcement of his own contract extension. But when Mike McDaniel took the podium this morning and said that Tua was going to participate in some level of practice, I was like, that's weird. Because yesterday I got on this podcast and I said, once you as a player pull yourself back and say, I'm going to retain my services until you have a resolution for me on what I want, or there's a resolution that a contract extension is not going to happen, that's kind of a point of no return. Like, you can't be like, oh, I'm going to practice and then not practice, and then I'll practice again and throw 7-on-7s again. So when Mike McDaniel said that, I said, what the heck are we doing? Right. And then he goes out and he's not just a participant in the individual drills and on the 7-on-7. Tua had his 11-on-11 reps, and everybody that's been on the beat and been local for practices going back to minicamp and OTA says this is the most we've seen Tua do all offseason. It's like, okay. And not only that, I've been coming down to training camp for 4 years. This is the best practice I've ever seen Tua have. As far as there were probably 5 like big time wow throws throughout the course of practice today. One to Devon Achane, one to Tyreek Hill. He had another couple of really good throws deep down the field. And we'll get into that when we do the training camp practice recap. I want to keep the main thing right now, which is this Tua Tagovailoa contract extension, which is kind of a collective sigh of relief because you could feel the weight amongst the players. You could feel the weight at training camp. It was notable how the offense performed. And that's not to say that anybody already knew that your starting quarterback is going to give you the best operations of your offense. But for all of the talk of how far this was or was not away, it's really fascinating to see where the concessions kind of come in on both sides with the negotiations. I think you consider Miami and the concerns about the injury history of the player and the fact that this is a 4-year contract extension, which is not overly frequent. Most of the time, these are 5-year contract extensions that you see done. I think maybe that's a concession on Tua and his side's perspective to say, okay, we'll do a one less year on the deal if you're concerned about the longevity of the player. Now, they also came in with an average, a $212.4 million average is $53.1 million per season. That's just in front of Jared Goff, who had come in and was kind of the first contract this offseason that kind of felt like it moved the goalposts a little bit as far as maybe where Miami had this negotiation window to land and park the dollar amount on this contract. And we still need to see like the full terms of the deal. I don't imagine we might get that tonight since it's such a big contract. But usually that takes a couple days for like how the salary cap distribution is, what you put in base salary, how you structured your guarantees. Are they roster bonuses? Are they option bonuses? Is it signing bonus? Like how much bonus money do you get up front? There's still a lot of questions, right? But the magnitude of this contract and to know that the APY, the average per year of this contract checks in front of Jared Goff is significant because right now it's parked only behind Trevor Lawrence and Joe Burrow, who are both at 55. They edged him in front of Jared Goff, right? So when you considered the moving target of the negotiation window as the Goff contract drops and then the Trevor Lawrence drops, and that's at 55, that's all leverage for Athletes First and Tua's camp to negotiate for a higher price point on the deal. So I think Miami took those two concessions, the terms, the length of the deal, and then the average per year of the deal. It would have been very easy for Athletes First to point at and say, look, Trevor Lawrence got 55 per, he got $200 million in practical guarantees, and he got $142 million in guaranteed at signing. This should be pretty straightforward. Tua's got better production and resume the last 2 years than Trevor Lawrence. That's our floor. They didn't get that, right? So that's the win for Miami. The win for Tua and the win for Athletes First is obviously the PR spin on this is biggest 4-year contract extension in NFL history. And the guaranteed money, they haven't specified whether $167 million of this was guaranteed at signing or practical guarantees. But I can tell you, I can look at guaranteed at signing in the NFL. And if it's $167 million guaranteed at signing, this is the number 2 guaranteed at signing total in NFL history. And the only one that's in front of that was Deshaun Watson getting a 4-year fully guaranteed contract with was it 5-year, $230 million fully guaranteed contract with the Cleveland Browns when Watson was traded to Cleveland. And teams they're not going to do that again. A fully guaranteed contract, and it has weighed so heavily on Cleveland, so much so that they are manipulating their salary cap space for just about every player on the roster. They haven't touched Watson's this year because if they restructure that deal, you don't really have an out next year out of that deal. I think you kind of get the sense they want to preserve the flexibility to have the out. So he's taking on like a big salary cap hit this year. So I can't imagine you'd see another $230 million guaranteed at signing contract anytime soon. So Joe Burrow, if that 167 is guaranteed at signing, that's more than Joe Burrow by about $21 million. So when you're looking for, okay, if Athletes First made concessions on the APY and they made concessions on the length of the deal, where are the concessions as it pertains to the Dolphins? The guaranteed money portion of this seems to be where that has taken place. Now, there's some more thoughts on the terms of this deal. We'll look at practical guarantees, and if it's practical guarantees, where that ranks in the hierarchy of NFL quarterback contracts. That's coming up next. There's a ton of you who are live on YouTube. It's great to see all you guys. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Make sure you hit subscribe, follow along as we give our first thoughts on Tua Tagovailoa's contract extension. Make sure you stick with us. Passion, drive, and patience are not just the formula for winning championships. It's what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers to roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, you're guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash with all the parts you need at the prices you want. It's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge dubs. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. eBay Guarantee Fit available only to U.S. customers. 25 of you guys left on an ad break. Shame on you. I also would like to say, there's a bunch of you who did not watch yesterday's training camp preview, but let me be the first to say we are down at training camp. We're doing training camp recaps at the end of every day of practice. I'm sitting in a leather swivel chair, and I don't know if you guys can hear any of the chair. I was accused of dropping a big flatulence on the air yesterday. It did not happen. It was the chair. Okay, so let's clear the air on that right now. Let's get back to this Tua contract. If the 167 in guaranteed money is practical guarantees as compared to fully guaranteed at signing, that would make him the 8th highest practical guarantees. The difference between practical guarantees and fully guaranteed is when you put pen to paper on a fully guaranteed amount, there's no stipulations to at what date things guarantee. So it's pen to paper. It's my signing bonus, the salaries that are fully guaranteed, no matter what, no questions asked, whether I'm on the team or off the team, you're required to write me those checks for that dollar amount. Practical guarantees, and there's different degrees of like likelihood of achieving it. The most common way is future years worth of salaries or roster bonuses that guarantee at or after a certain date on the calendar. So an example of a practical guarantee may be, hey, to all of your money in 2024, 2025, and 2026 is fully guaranteed. But in the third year of your 4-year contract, your salary is going to fully guarantee for 2027 in March of 2026. So a year ahead of time, we will have to make a decision on if we're going to retain your services and that salary for the next year will fully guarantee, or there's a break point where the team will have to eat some dead cap and some dead salary. So that's kind of the first big question after what has been reported about this contract, at least at the time of me pushing record and going live, is 167 practical or fully guaranteed? It's a good number either way. 167 in practical guarantees is the 8th highest amongst NFL. Now, if that becomes guaranteed at signing again, that's number 2 in the league. But the guys that have more in practical guarantees than 167 include Jared Goff, who also signed a 4-year contract for almost the same amount of Tua. Tua got an extra $400,000 across 4 seasons. Jalen Hurts, both of those guys are between $170 and $180 million in practical guarantees. And then it's all guys that got 5-year contracts. So that's kind of the asterisk that goes alongside practical guaranteed money, and not ranking higher in the hierarchy of quarterback contracts is, well, yeah, he's got 1 less year on this new contract extension than the top 6 guys in the NFL do. That includes Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, and the fully guaranteed contract of Deshaun Watson. Now, I guess I probably should have known that this was coming, given the fact that the thing that I'm working on right now I was working on right now for Touchdown Miami, which is my Substack for long-form written Dolphins content, was a revised version of the contract proposal that I had for Tua in the springtime when we did a show that was explicitly on this program of what's a good competitive offer for Tua Tagovailoa. And that deal was a 5-year deal. And the average of that at the time back in March, and this is before Jared Goff signed and before Trevor Lawrence signed, it was about $51 million per season was the APY on the contract that was presented back in March that I said, hey, this is what I would probably start the negotiations with and offer. And it included $143 million in fully guaranteed money. And then it was like $167 million in practical guarantees. So the closest thing that I had on that was the practical, but I revised the contract. I said, look, I have the whole thing laid out. I'm going to write this story with updated numbers and talk about why it would be appealing for both sides. And I started that yesterday, and then the contract actually dropped today, because of course it did. But what I can tell you about that contract that I had proposed, you know what? Let me see if I can pull it up. I'm going to get greedy here, and that's especially dangerous because we're live, so there's a 0% chance it's going to go the way that I want it to. But let me try this. If you're not watching on YouTube, I would highly recommend it. There you go. Okay, so this was the dollar amounts that I had on a proposal for Tua, and it included 5 years, $269 million. So the extension AAV on what I was going to propose was $53.9 million per season across 5 years as compared to 4 years. So the fact that Miami's actual number came in below that, okay, you'll take that as part of a successful negotiation. The fully guaranteed in the contract that I had laid out was 147 guaranteed at signing, with $178 million in total practical guaranteed dollars. That is also that totaling guarantees below what actually happened. But again, I had an extra year's worth of contract money to have to work with. So you if you're watching on YouTube, you see a lot of option bonuses, which is dollar amounts that are paid in lump sums in any given year, but then spread out across 5 years of salary cap. I would expect there's a lot of this in the actual deal. Now, the details of that are what is really going to determine how much flexibility the Dolphins have with this contract. And as tiresome of these contract negotiations have been, I think that is an important thing to remember, is the Dolphins are consistently applauded for having contract structures that allow them optimum flexibility with circumventing the salary cap or how they approach player acquisitions. And you don't get that by just giving what somebody wants with a blank check. And I know a lot of Dolphins fans have carried a lot of scar tissue from the Christian Wilkins saga last year that saw Christian Wilkins go through a very difficult contract negotiation throughout the offseason, also represented by Athletes First, same as Tua. And then to see him show up to training camp, do a few days of practices, and then hold in for effectively the entirety of the preseason, and then leave. And that with a quarterback who is a quarterback who has the offense tailored to his strengths, with a coach that was brought in with the vision of maximizing the player, is very intimidating for a lot of fans to sit here and watch kind of the game of chicken that has unfolded with these two sides. And I guess all it took was for Tua to pull himself off the practice field one time for everybody to say, okay, let's figure this out. And I think that's where, when you shift your eyes and look forward, that's the big relief that I have, because this has the potential to be a very competitive and successful football team this year. And this hanging over the team would have threatened a lot of that if the attention was not in the right places. Now, there's more as far as what is next for everyone involved, including the Dolphins, and where their eyes can potentially turn now. That's where we're going to go next, because we don't have any more of the full details of this contract here on Locked On Dolphins. Make sure that you stick with us. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find qualified candidates that are right for the role. And that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. This is not just another job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. So hire professionals like a professional with LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. So from here, Tua, you would assume, is going to be back in action and to a full degree like he was yesterday. And what was funny was we were just finishing player availabilities at practice. And my phone pinged with somebody that said, hey, heads up, looks like Tua deal might get done today. And then two other people that were at media availability had their phones ping, and I watched their heads come up and their eyebrows go up. And it tracks, right, with him getting back on the practice field and being an active participant and just tearing the heck. And this is a family program. Otherwise, heck is not the word I would use. Tearing the heck out of the Dolphins defense in some 11-on-11 drills today. But Miami has other contracts that they can focus on, and knowing what the next 5 years, because this is a 4-year contract extension on top of the 1 year that you have remaining, the 5th-year option year. So in reality, this is a 5-year commitment, including this season for Tua. So that's 2024, 25, 26, 27, and 28. That piece, there's not a lot of players that are signed through 2028, right? Is Tyreek Hill's through 2026. Jalen Waddle just got a nice contract extension. You have Chop Robinson, 24, 25, 26, 20. Technically, he's through 27 with a 5th-year player option for 26. This piece being in place opens the door for the Dolphins to turn their attention to Javon Holland, potentially, who, ironically enough, is represented by Athletes First. It has the potential to turn their eyes to Tyreek Hill, who has voiced his desire to have a contract adjustment. Do you want to add more years to that contract with 3 years remaining on it? Probably not. But at least you know what your central piece of salary cap commitment is going to be. We don't know what that looks like yet because we don't have the full terms and the breakdown of the year by year and what the signing bonus is and so on and so forth. I would imagine one of the other concessions the Dolphins made is to offer a fairly large signing bonus as a result of this contract extension. Because Miami, I think, comes out on the winning side of this negotiation with the years of the contract. I think they come out winning with the APY on the contract. I think the guarantees and potentially the signing bonus as far as what is paid up front is where Tua may see his wins come in this negotiation. But all of that, at least as of the time that I started the recording, is kind of touch and go. So that's where my eyes are next as it pertains to Tua specifically. The team is off tomorrow. And fans are in the stands on Sunday. So you can be rest assured having Tua paid ahead of that is a nice sigh of relief for everybody involved, so that you didn't have to have the fans in the stands letting everybody know that's on the field with the team what their thoughts are on whether or not Tua Tagovailoa is going to get paid or not paid. But more reaction to this contract sure to come as the details trickle out. But I wanted to hop on live before I do my training camp recap because this news just dropped. And I hope you guys will come back and hear my thoughts on today's training camp practice. I'm here through the end of next week, including the practice at Hard Rock Stadium next Saturday. So we got some great training camp coverage coming your way. Our reaction to Tua Tagovailoa, you just got it. Make sure you keep it locked in right here on Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day. I appreciate you guys for checking out the show. Make it a great rest of your Friday. I will be back with another show in just a little bit to talk about today's training camp practice, the winners and losers from that. But one big winner here on this Friday, Tua Tagovailoa gets his contract extension locked in. I appreciate you guys for checking out the show. Peace.